Welcome back. Today I'm joined again by Attorney Matthew Underwood, an estate planning attorney in Madison. Matt, thanks for coming back on.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Tom.
And today we've got another tough question that I saved for you, Matt. And this is one I see come up a lot in my practice, and it is, why does a power of attorney document end when the person dies, the person who created it?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's another one of those areas that we see some confusion on, because if we're talking about wills and powers of attorney, sometimes it's hard to know, when does one document start, when does the next one begin, and where do those documents overlap. So I think when we're looking at powers of attorney, those are documents that apply during somebody's lifetime. So the powers of attorney will protect you if you're incapacitated, or if you need somebody to make decisions for you, if you're unable to make some yourself. And there's financial powers of attorney that cover paying bills, cashing checks, managing finances. There's also healthcare powers of attorney that cover medical decision making. So it's important that people have both. You really need that planning in place to cover finances and healthcare decision making during your lifetime. So in as far as how do we know when those powers of attorney end, and now we have a different set of documents pick up? Those powers of attorney do terminate when the person who created those, sometimes that's called the principal, when that principal passes away, those powers of attorney go away, essentially. And when we're talking about financial issues, once that power of attorney goes away, when that principal passes away, that's when the will comes into play, or trust. So in other words, that power of attorney goes away, but we have some other documents to cover that person after their death. So there's actually a Wisconsin statute on this, and this is 244.10. If anyone wants to look that up. And Wisconsin has the uniform power of attorney for finances. So this is, applies in a number of different states, but that statute actually says that power of attorney goes away when that principal passes away. So our elected officials created this law, and it's codified in statute, so we know that, so that's what's going to happen when that principal passes away. So again, it's important that when we're talking about estate planning, it's usually not good enough to just do powers of attorney, because that doesn't cover people when they pass away. It's not enough to just do a will, because wills go into effect when people pass away, but we really need to have that spectrum, so that we need to have that lifetime planning and that after death planning. So that's what I would say on that. Tom, is there anything that you would add, or things that you see in your practice about this?
Okay, so Matt, I get this question a lot, and sometimes you'll see it posted in the forums too. Someone will say, I'm the power of attorney for my mother, and she just passed away, and the bank won't let me access her accounts now to pay for the funeral or the flowers. I got to get this going. And I often feel for these folks, because they're just trying to take care of mom's wishes, and they were paying the bills for mom, let's say the last 3 years of her life, right? Because they were the power of attorney. And it's very confusing, but then she died. Why don't they have the authority anymore? So can you just went through why it ends at when they die, but what do they need to do next to get that power to pay for the funeral?
Yeah, so that's a good point, because when that power of attorney ends, when that principal passes away, that's really it. We can't revive that power of attorney. We have to use some other sort of tool to get that done. So there's three kind of common ways that we see that handled. Number one is maybe a power of attorney is all that person had, in which case, when they pass away, they really don't have any other planning documents. And that's where we end up in probate court. That's where the state of Wisconsin will dictate where that person's property goes. And to your point, Tom, when we need to pay some bills, whether it's funeral, mortgage, utility bills, and we don't have any other planning documents, we have to go to court, and we have to wait for that court to issue letters of authority to that family member or whoever is going to handle things. That letter of authority is also called a domiciliary letter in Wisconsin, and there can be a delay before that family member receives that from the court. Commonly we're looking at a period of weeks to even, months to get this letter of authority. So it's better to have some planning in place so we don't have to do that. And just quickly, if they have if the person who passes away has a will, then their will still has to go to probate court. We still have to wait for that letter of authority. So whether you have no plan after you pass away or whether you have a will, there's some process to go through. The other thing that people do, and if you have enough time to plan for this, you can set up something like a revocable living trust. And that way, when that person passes away, that revocable living trust actually continues on. So that revocable trust doesn't terminate, that lives on. And then that trustee, whoever that person named as their successor trustee, will manage that trust. They can take money out of the trust and pay for funeral or other expenses. So if you want to make sure that you're giving the most amount of control to your trusted family members, trust is probably the way to do that. And that'll not only cover them during their lifetime, but also when they pass away.
Exactly. Thank you, Matt. Yeah, so like I said, that question comes up a lot. I wanted to cover it for our viewers because it is, in my opinion, it is confusing. People get used to acting as agent for mom, and they're very surprised when the death terminates that agency relationship, okay? And then you got to go to court, like Matt's saying, to get new paperwork to act after that. And if you don't want to have that terminate, the answer is to do a trust that flows through that entire process. You can have the same person do it all during life and after you're gone. So great question to the viewer. Thank you for asking. I hope this was helpful to the other viewers trying to wrap your heads around that agency power under a power of attorney. Matt, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Tom. Always a pleasure.
And we'll see you all next time.